This really isn't fun. I was speaking for the last 10 minutes without realizing that my microphone was off. Anyway, here we go. So, let's try to do this again. I welcome you to the Singapore Grand Prix, where 23 corners separate you from one side of the start finishing line to the other. Just a moment ago, before I realized that my microphone was off, I was speaking about what people associate this beautiful country with, whether it's the track, the people, maybe even all the amazing companies it's brought about. I'll tell you what I think. I think about the noodles. Quite like the noodles. They're very nice, and I think as long as they're chili though, I think this is something that the drivers will be definitely fighting for today. The winner can treat themselves to a pot of noodles. Unless you're Muslim and celebrate Ramadan. 20 minutes to the quali, and with 10 drivers in the lane, you only have one track. Nobody has set a lap yet, but hopefully there's something that will be brought about fairly soon. After all, we all want a pot of noodles. I spoke before, once again before I was smart enough to realise that my microphone was off. I was speaking about our legend guy Shapiro, who is obviously Ben Shapiro in disguise. So while we do not have Scotty fish, they're fish from Scotland, not from England, not from Ireland, but from Scotland, we will be treated to some nice conservative news talk from Ben Shapiro. Now mind you, his name does suggest that he's the 16th Ben Shapiro. The line of Bens has been quite substantial. So, what happened with the last 15, you may ask? That's a question that I do not wish to answer, as I think it would be quite risky and would probably bring us all into a hate speech zone. Anyway, let's take a look at our car and driver here taking a lap around the Singapore Grand Prix. Turn 1 is an element of the track which really tests the aero you have put on the car. As you can see here, it is possible to take a straight line through an element of those first few corners, but given the amount of cars we're going to have on track, it might not be eternally possible. The run down through sector 1 is generally speaking one of the straighter parts of the track, no pun intended. When you look at the drivers making their way through the L, 90 degree L, from turn 7 to 9, it will demand some heavy braking, especially given that turn 7 ends the DRS zone from sector 1. Within sector 2 we now see our driver here going into turn 13. A very tight part of the track, but one that opens drivers to yet another DRS zone. As you can see, the flaps being open. Purple sector here from our driver. Obviously not exactly too much to be proud of, given that he's the first driver to actually complete a valid lap. But if you're looking for some kind of accomplishment, here you go. And there you go. Instead of finishing the lap with 4 purples, you have an invalidated lap time. Everybody hates the way the game does this. At least it's not one-shot quality when doing something like this really risks your performance later on, but clearly going around the tracks drifting is something that all drivers are interested in today. Backwards in the pit lane, maybe not. Sideways in the pit lane, maybe not either. Getting disqualified. Oh, speaking of going backwards in the pit lane. Somebody really wants to see his racing engineer. Well, it worked this time. So, Maxi appears to be on a good lap too. Or good lap, that's something we're going to find out. But on a nice hot lap. Minutes left and still no driver finishing a lap. Purple sector 4. Max. Super Max. Whether he will be so super, we're going to find out later in the qualifying session as we await all drivers to actually complete a lap. So far though, definitely something to be proud of. If you're one of one, you're still first. Nobody asked how many people are competing. Nice smooth run down through the, I was gonna say tunnel section, but the bridge section. In fact, DRS enabled once more in the HWA. Second purple sector. Let's take a look if we can bring the lap data out. Here we go, sector 3. And with a few people joining, we now watch Max go over the start finish line. Will be in the 150s, it appears. It is indeed a 151.016. It's what the HWA driver is setting as the baseline for the other drivers to compete against. Jericho has joined, but we still wait for Scottish Fish. But instead we get to see the lovely blue car of Ben Shapiro driving around the track. And we see another driver in the wall. There we go. So it is, let's call him Timmy. From now on he's Timmy. So Timmy in the Colin, really trying to whack his wheels off. Clearly doesn't like the track and he's showing his grief against it. Speaking of wipeouts, who says you can only hurt the people in other cars around? You can try and hurt the track as well. I mean, the Toyotas did it in WEC. They managed to. They brought a red flag up. Speaking about WEC, if you're interested in reading about something about motorsports, you are always very welcome to read something on... Oh, there you go. No more tyre for Timmy. This guy is clearly not happy about what happened to Timmy. You see how angry he is. He's not a big fan of Timmy's wheel loss. Like, he won't even look at him in the eyes. You see Timmy right behind him, but he's not even willing to take a look in that direction. Anyway, back to what I was saying. If anybody is interested in reading any cool motorsport articles, anything from the latest news from the motorsport world, I highly encourage you to come on the Overtake. This is an unpaid sponsorship, promotion, whatever you wish to call it. It's simply me telling you to do something because it is a very good option for you. I will be writing a new World Endurance Championship article tonight that I will be posting very soon. Hopefully right after the race. Maybe not directly after because I still have to write it, but it'll be there. So stay tuned for that. Ben Shapiro still with his nice little front wing on the car. Not destroying it yet. But maybe that will change. We'll see. Nice wide line going into the final turn, and he sets himself in second. A very, very small difference between himself and first. Look at the tiny difference. 1/100th of a second. So Ben Shapiro did not destroy Max yet. But maybe that is something we'll see very soon. Bob sector 1 as he goes for his second lap on the track. Passing Max just there behind him. And as he slowly edges towards, maybe I shouldn't say slowly, but edges towards the end of sector 2, we're going to see how he performs there. It appears as if it is a very quick lap indeed, with just under 10 minutes left. DRS enabled, and he's going to cross the line, finishing sector 2 right there. Purple sector, it is not. So while another driver finishes the lap, puts himself in P3, and Shapiro is now contesting for P1 indeed, for pole position. Final sector here. He had a few slips around the track, so he's definitely got a possibility to improve further. Sector 3 undergoes some yellow flags, which we're really smacking every single part of the track. Can't go wide here and invalidate your lap. DRS anybody, he does set the fastest lap. About 4.5 tenths quicker than Max in front of him. So there you go, Ben Shapiro destroys this competition. So, 17 thousandth of a second quicker than his previous lap is the campus driver right here. Now through sector 3 with this teammate right behind. It doesn't seem as if this will be a lap worthy of grabbing pole from Ben Shapiro, but as we know, anything is possible. And now as he goes over the line, we will find out where this puts him. P2 in front. Does not seem as if it was enough. Can though. The Turk sets at 150.569. Nice. That's about, let me do my math calculations, That's not even two. That's 1/100th of a second quicker than Ben Shapiro, I should say. That's quite a small difference. And he's going for a second purple lap already. So it seems as if one purple lap wasn't good enough. The second is on the way. Kaya in the meantime sets a fast lap 150.0. That's half a second, almost 6 tenths quicker than Can. Which will now demand him to really maximise this potential that he has established over this lap. Jerry sets himself in P4 ahead of teammate Max. Kaya retires from the session knowing that he or she, I'm not entirely sure, will have stayed a bit of lap. Purple sector in sector 2 for Can. That's 2 purple sectors in a row. It appears as if he will be the one regaining P1 ultimate place to start the race in. Obviously the feature race, because the sprint race will have a reversed starting order between P1 and P10. But that is something in the near future. What we're waiting for first is Can to set his lap, now been dropped down into P3. Can he take it? It appears not. Despite having 2 purple sectors, he finds himself in P3. Okay, so we had some issues. Turns out that some of the drivers who were in this qualifying session are actually banned. So what we'll do now is allow all our drivers to complete their laps, and then we will set a custom order for the actual racing session. So, as we take a look at the qualifying session finishing, the Raptor took pole. Few drivers left with their laps being available to finish. Our driver here will obviously be grabbing second after Kaya gets released. Which will also place Cannon third. But our driver here does have the potential to make it even up into P1. Maybe not, but P3 it is. So, 1 hour later, we come back to racing. The preset grid. Grid is preset on the basis of the qualifying session we've had right before this. So, 10 drivers in the grid, around a 23 lap corner circuit. What does it take you in the wall? That's what many of our drivers will experience. Hopefully not, because the results, if there are no DNFs, will be published by Tuesday. Two races, and then during this set of races we will be forgetting about the whole element of inverted grids for the first and second race due to the whole qualifying issue. The Raptor did have the fastest lap of all actual racing drivers. Hence why he is starting on pole. No more Scottish fish. I think we should make that pretty clear. 2 weeks now, 2 races in a row where we do not see the wonderful fish from Scotland, who actually turns out to be a fish from England. Anyway, what you do get to see is Ben Shapiro in a Formula 2 car. Pretty nuts in this seat of Suhu. And will now be doing his best to climb up the order with 3 really competitive and strong drivers ahead. That might not be as easy as it sounds, but hey, Ben Shapiro has destroyed a lot of other things in his life. And I'm speaking about leftist comments, by the way, so don't cancel me. Laps is what the drivers will be facing over the course of this race. First of 2 sprint race here, no forced pit stops, full blown sprint as the name suggests. The track goes silent with 5 lights going off, and the drivers make their way down into turn 1. Great opportunity for overtaking is right there, but it clearly hasn't been used by many drivers, with D-Rapster making a move up the field, spreading far off from his competitors with immediate effect. Ben Shapiro now on his way to attempt an overtake on VS Gamer. Clearly not as possible, as the drivers are managing to make a clean entrance and the beginning to the race with cars ahead making a slight move. Shapiro losing 1 position, almost tipping his front wing on the car in front. That would have been very detrimental, given that you do not need to stop during this race, and doing so will therefore bring him back very far. Trying to make a move around the outside in sector 2. Maybe not the best idea. The best of opportunities for overtaking are always clearly the ones at the start of the lap into turn 1 and across the starting straight. But if you make a move, it's a move. It doesn't matter where it happened as long as it did. Look at this massive gap that Europe has already produced. 1.3 seconds. Massive, massive gap. Can meanwhile attempting to make somewhat of a chase, but given the speed of the reps, I'm not sure how possible this is. Some drivers were complaining about forgetting to turn the setup option on, and are therefore driving with neutral setups, which is definitely something you do not want to get around a track like this. We saw a bunch of drivers going deep just moments ago, but it seems as if we are not yet in a position, and a single one of them is, to overtake the car ahead. Awesome line taken by all drivers around these elements of the track, which is definitely one of the most competitive tracks on the calendar. What appears to be 6/10 of a second is clearly not enough for Gershberg to make any kind of attempt to overtake, although he does dive really deep down, which appears to be detrimental given the fact that he has a car right behind him. Lap 2 of 12 is eyeing towards its finish, with all drivers going through sector 3 now. The fact that not many of our drivers, if not any, haven't lost any element of the front wing is quite amazing. Genuinely, it is one of the tougher tracks to complete such a achievement. So big congratulations to all of them. But definitely that is not something that you are wishing for anyway. It's almost like it is a baseline. What you wish for is a position that is currently held by the Rapster, that being first. 3 seconds of a gap to the car behind will therefore mean that his closest competitor, Can, is out of DRS reach. He, on the other hand, is faced with a bit of a dilemma. Car behind does have DRS, which, while maybe less effective given the short length of the DRS zones, definitely in comparison to other tracks like Catalonia or Bahrain, will still have an effect. Sparks fly from another car of Can, and so does a certain element of speed, although it does seem as if his competitor right behind is really eyeing the option of overtaking. It doesn't seem as if you can get much closer. This is the position that you wish yourself to be in. Not too close, not too far, within DRS reach. The next straight will definitely be one where our driver here will be able to overtake, while Ben Shapiro gets a 3 seconds and minutes away, trying to eye down the opportunity of an overtake into turn 1. As I mentioned, this is a fairly short DRS zone, so it's not going to be as useful as some of the other ones around other tracks, but nevertheless a DRS zone is a DRS zone, and any DRS zone helps anyone and everyone. Maybe unless you're on Mercedes this year. So while the gap between second and first is now almost 5 seconds, the gap between second and third is closing by the lap. It really does seem as if VW here could really make an overtake within any moment, any segment of the track. Will either definitely will attempt to. How successful he will be dictated by the part of the track he chooses to have taken and the defense of Can. The gap is steadily remaining around 0.6 of a second, with VS Gamer also receiving 3 seconds time, but it's which now grows the gap between third and fourth and fifth. It appears as if this lap won't be the lap that VW tries to make an overtake. Bit too late given the tiny gap between the two drivers, although he does manage to shorten the gap just a little bit. Meanwhile, behind it we see an overtake up into turn 1. Max here defending P5, with Ben Shapiro back in P4, the position he opened the race in. VS Gamer, while being awarded 3 seconds upload just moments ago, will not choose to remain behind. The arrest open in the car of Max, thanks to closing down on Ben right in front. But look at this potential switchback from the driver behind. Not yet. But the train is starting to form here, and you know what that means, action is coming. We'll take a short glance up ahead as the gap temporarily flew just under 0.3 of a second. So as mentioned before, a move is really an option at any given point. But it appears as if this train is something that needs to be within the top priorities of worries for some of the drivers here. Remaining undefended is definitely going to be favourable for many of them, given the speed of drivers such as Max. So Sector 3 is about to come to a close, and we might finally see the move by VW. DRS activated, but clearly not enough once again. It's the corners that you need to be prepared for, not the straight line speed on this track. It's not as tight as Monaco, not as quick as Saudi Arabia though. You can't set your car up for the straights knowing that you're going to be having to conquer your competitors in the main elements of the track. Is that a move I'm seeing? Unfortunately, it can go in quite late on the brakes. VW having a bit slightly better run into the following corner. We do see a bunch of moves as we have our first wipeout. Unfortunately, we missed it as we took a look up the field for just one moment, but Max, while being available to continue his campaign towards the end of the race is now out of main competition. Halfway through the race we go, and you don't really get to see from the bird's eye view how tight the track is. I just mentioned that it's not as tight as Monaco. That does say something about Monaco though, but it is nevertheless a very, very tough track to handle. Very late braking here by Ben. Not enough to make an overtake though. Ben Shapiro gets a 3-second time penalty, destroying his competition. It appears as if he's going to be under increased pressure, clearly already showing itself in the form of penalties, which he is unable to save himself from, because now every element of the track is what he needs to exploit. We'll take a quick look up, and it's always quite insane that after all 7 laps of chasing Can, VW has been unable to make an overtake. You see how close they really are. Whether it's the dirt here, the lack of grip on tyres, it's hard to tell, but there must be an excuse as to why he isn't getting close enough. He was clearly slightly faster in certain elements of the track, really reaching his prime of the race right now. All drivers on the same compound tyre, of course, meaning that they will have relevant, or maybe not relevant, that's the wrong word to use here, but relatively similar tyre wear. Two laps now with an 8-second gap, well not 8 yet, but 7.3, eyeing towards that 8-second mark. You know he's going to get it sooner or later. Oh, look how close Ria's Gamer is getting to Ben Shapiro from front. He seems to be given everything he possibly can, but even given the penalties, it seems as if he won't be able to hold on, and he does take a very, very wide line, which now allows Ria's Gamer to finally make a move into 4th. Now, whether Ben Shapiro is going to make a move back up into P4 is one element of the question, but whether he's going to be able to defend against the drivers behind is another. DRS now available in the sky, and he's going to be really able to show whether it was his speed that didn't allow Ria's Gamer to overtake, or was it solely the tightness of the track that limited overtaking opportunities. 3 stretching it, I could say 4 car train now forming on this element of the track, lap 8 of 12, and Ben Shapiro is making a move around the outside. Can he hold on? Appears as if he will not. Tries to get slightly on the line, and he does make it on. Awesome attempt. He is the quicker driver on this element of the track for sure. DRS enabled once again. Almost hitting the back of his competitor. It'll be the starting straight now, but gives him the best opportunity to overtake. Max, as you can see, 5-4, regaining his positions. Tried to make a move up the outside, but it clearly wasn't as possible. We take a look back up the field as big man Ben Shapiro attempts to use everything his car has been given him to overtake the Fiat game. Even the DRS isn't able to do so. It really needed a good line into turn 23. Without that, even DRS and slipstream can't help you. We'll take a quick look up, because this competition is still going on between CAN and VW. P2, so a lot of points up for grabs between the two drivers here. It seems as if the Rapster's only in a sphere where his own mistakes can cost him the win of the race. But the cars following behind, anything is still possible. So meanwhile, Ben Shapiro trying to make a move up on VS Gamer is something that we will be trying to take a look at very soon. But unfortunately for him, it does seem as if his competitors are eyeing further and further away by the lap. And CAN, for the first time during this race, appears to be moving slightly away from his competitor, 6/10 of a second. Definitely not as good as you wish to overgap to have, but it's better than nothing. Really limiting his competitor's opportunity for overtaking. But given the line that VW is taking around this element of the track, anything could go really. I was going to ask whether this is the moment. It really did seem as if VW really just need that stretch of 400 more meters of a straight and he would have had CAN there. That's not something Singapore offers. This is where you need to use every single element of the corners to your best advantage. But if you take a look now, the gap is below half a second. You saw CAN almost going defensive there, taking a really poor line through the element of the track, and now with 4/10 of a difference, it will fall under that gap. One DRS zone has really been useful to VW, and has been the one that he has just crossed a moment ago. The starting finish straight wasn't as good as we could have imagined. We'll take a quick look down the pack as Ben Shapiro is trying to chase VS Gamer, coming quite close, and surprisingly the train remains in the raw form it has been in all race. No DNFs so far, so look, it looks as if the results will be coming out on Tuesday. Bad line there for Guy. And there must have been some kind of incident here, because with 2 laps left of the race, VW finds himself a full 4 seconds behind CAN. Unfortunately, it's something we missed, but what we won't miss is the next overtake that Ben Shapiro may be making on his competitor once again. Would you look at that, around the outside, being squeezed around that element of the track. Forced to use the apex once again. Right in the gearbox of VS Gamer, sliding around the track. Not yet in Sector 2, but he will have DRS very soon, unless he makes a move beforehand. Being so close, this is where all your strengths are gathered. This is where you need to use all the adrenaline that your brain is providing. Even the tiny slip isn't enough to make Guy lose his gap to VS Game, and DRS will now be available. So little of a gap. He is going to make a move. He will be trying to make a run down into the follower corner with the inside to his advantage, and he does use the full stretch of the corner, regains 4th position. This gamer won't let himself lose that so easily, really pushing his luck there, leading to a slight contact with Guy, which is now putting him at major vulnerability to the cars behind. So if you take the penalties here, Ben Shapiro, despite being currently in 4th, has a full 9 seconds of penalties that appears to put him severely down the pack. Can he make a move down the inside? Yes he can. That is 80, but that is a severe corner cut there. That is not a position, there's not a way you should be conducting your racing, but fair enough to him, he has given the position back. Not to one driver, but to 2, unfortunately for him. And the 4-second gap appears to be what the difference between VW and CAN will remain as. Lap 12, so this is the final part of the conquest of the sprint race, of course, because you still have a feature race to follow where you can make your attempt of overtaking. So DRS enabled in the car of Ben, not Shapiro. This is the other, the real Ben. Furious came out pulling away just slightly, but he is still vulnerable to an attack. Feels as if Etty is going to be quite far away from any opportunities. And he wraps to finish his race in P1, kind of following very closely behind, but all eyes are on whether these cars here between P5 and 6 will finish in the order. It appears as if so, with just a corner left between them and the finishing line. The sprint race will finish in the given order that you have just seen. Of course, after penalties, Ben Shapiro lands in 7th, not even 6th. 9 seconds of penalties. You see how detrimental that is to a driver. So Max, despite all the issues he's faced, thanks to the penalties from behind, or in front I should say, finds himself back in P4. A driver that day? Speak about a positive commentator's curse. You saw that happen. So, there's your finishing sequence. The Rapster, after starting first, finishes first with an awesome 10-second advantage over his competitors. Can makes a 1 position gain to finish in second thanks to the early dive bomb in sector 1. VW meanwhile finishes in third, 1 position drop. Max with a 3 position increase. Well, we should say a lot more, given the fact he had started and crashed, placing him severely far down the pack. So the feature race is about to commence. It is 7:30 British time, so you now find yourself 1.5 hours after the original start of the race, of the qualifying session I should say. So, it's the feature race where you have the inverted starting grid. So now it is the Rapster that needs to regain all 10 positions now instead of during the sprint race. So the teammates from High Tech find themselves in P8, P9. Charu's in P4 and 5, and it will be Karius here in P1. Obviously, given the sheer speed of Dolga behind and his mastermind when it comes to setups and pit stops, I think he will be a major competitor for the win of this race. If you win 2 races in a row, fair enough. Preston Brennan was very close to that 2 or 3 weeks ago, so whether he can have a successor, we will find out very, very shortly. Remember to go and check out on the Overtake awesome page. I will drop you a link in the chat. The link is now in the chat. Please go read some of our articles right after the race. I hope our league owners don't get too mad at me there. But luckily enough, some of them are working on the Overtake, so we're all good. Lap 17 is amount of laps, so we're going to have to counter to place ourselves around the checkered flag once again. Guy Shapiro now trying to make a move up the inside. Can he do so? VW remains in first. There is a spin already around one of the Chav drivers. Riazgima in second. Durabster in 7th. I think that is the same position he started with. The first lap, definitely the best opportunity to make any overtakes. It appears as if not too many are being made, although Ben Shapiro here trying to destroy his competitors once again. Definitely one of the quicker drivers around the track for today's race. Trying to make him move up the inside. No, it won't be close enough. Just hitting the gearbox of the car ahead. You just see how close he is with number 3, Salvo looking car. He will be trying to make a wish, as you can see on the rear wing of this car. Except that Ben Shapiro's wish happens to be making an overtake of the car, which is sponsored by the organization. So a slight gap building here as the Raps place themselves in 6th, Can in 5th. Oh, very slight tap on the wall there. No DNF so far. Look at this awesome line as we begin lap 2 of 17. A move up the inside appeared possible, but for safety reasons, their Shavu car decides to remain slightly behind as Ben Shapiro drives left to right, smacking either side of the barrier. You see VW making a 2-second gap almost by this point of the race, almost resembling the awesome speed that the Rapster had been racing with earlier this day. Yeah, it's pretty much the course I'm speaking about. And Ben, similar to what happened before, well, Guy I should say, finds himself competing for a position for a few laps once again, and there is a spin, and there goes the effort of Alex out the window. Anyway, a move up the inside is what we're witnessing from the Rapster now. Awesome angle. We just managed to catch that there, placing the high tech in P4. Now with VS Gamer right above Guy Shapiro, who had actually overtaken him just moments earlier. The Rapster will be having a bit of a challenge in terms of overtaking. Into lap 3 we go. And you see VS Gamer trying to make a move up on Guy Shapiro. They're almost destroying his win there. Luckily for him, he had not done so, but he is really close. Any corner now progresses his ability to make an overtake, and this is where DRS is enabled. This is where you have slipstream, fresh tyres, an overtake up the inside. Is it possible? Clearly he is, with Ben just holding on around the outside. Can he do so? He manages to do so, keeping the Alpine car slightly ahead. But with the switch back from Ria's game, it appears impossible so far. Cutting the corner is Guy Shapiro, and he will have to give superiority to Via's game, at least for now, as he places himself in P3 right in front of the Rapster. And Guy goes off, hitting the barrier on one side, manages to slip into the other side of it, giving the Raptor an easy opportunity for an overtake. Maybe can make a move and capitalise on the opportunity. Appears as if the car has no damage to his car. Whether that is actually the case, we'll find out very soon, based on whether his lap time will fall off or not. But this game also manages to clip the side of the barrier for one moment there. And with the Rapster now in third, he is within 5 laps, within 4 I should say, to be completely fair to him, regain a podium position after starting in the depth of the starting order. So now 2 positions left, 1 to VS Gamer, who is slipping around the entire track. Up the inside, can he make a move? Not even trying to. Ben meanwhile retired from the session, so forget any results being sent out by Tuesday. But meanwhile the Rapster does make the move up the outside, I should say, of VS Gamer in an attempt to make an overtake, tries to grab the inside there. VS Gamer giving him a lot of space. Very fair indeed. And now, no DRS yet, but with the slipstream and everything, all the speed he has, knowledge of how to handle this track, an overtake is possible every single given corner, just like I've mentioned before. It appears as if he really is trying to wait for the last straight, and there were some sparks flying from the car of the Rapster. That was from the front wing, which appeared to be slightly taking on damage. Whether he actually has done so or not is something we're going to find out very, very soon. Max finds himself back in P9. You know what that means. He's back on a attempt to regain his positions. Look at this. Despite this, technically being a slower driver in this race, is now able to make a move, or close the gap, I should say, to the Raptor ahead. Now, whether this is because the reaps are being slow, I don't think so. I think it's more about him being held up by VS Gamer right here, but clearly even the DRS into turn 1 is not enough to make the move. VW down with a 5.5 second gap to the cars behind, pulling away really easily, controlling the race, as we do see a move from the Rapster into P2. So there you go, VS Gamer now falls victim to not only the Rapster has been setting a pole sector just now, but is now also subject to the potentiality of overtakes, which he has summoned on himself by thinking about the fish from Scotland and therefore forgetting to turn his wheels into the following turn. So while he finds himself in the barriers, VW now finds himself 5.5 seconds in front of the Raptor, who is really quickly managing to grab all his time back and make an attempt to win. Again, 17 laps is the total number of laps of the race, 2 pebble sectors for the Rapster. Look at this, 5 4/10 now separating him from P1. Can right behind, so VS Game, after being in P2 for a short while, now falls into the worst slot, as many people have commonly referred to it, P4 or outside the podium. So look, VW sets the fastest lap, 153.4, expect that to be beaten. D-Rapster does beat it, quite severely in fact. So 152.8 is now the fastest lap of the race, being held by the current P2 sitter, although given his speed, given the fact that he's really clamped down on almost a full second within a few corners, maybe I shouldn't say corner, but a lap, we really can expect him to be fighting for the win of the race, especially if he can lead to a successful undercut, or overcut in fact. Purple sector once again for this driver here. I don't want to stay on him for too long because he isn't delivering much action apart from the chase that he's producing. But it is really spectacular how quick he's making up all the time that he's currently been losing. Max now in P7. There was an aim in the car of VS Gaming, but I think he did take some damage early on, so chasing will not be as easy as it may seem. Etri is awarded a nice 3-second time penalty. Nice thing to add to a collection in the Singapore Grand Prix. With 10 laps left, we are going to be easing towards the point in the race where drivers come in for their stops. Obviously, you have a bit of a variety of choices here. This soft tyre compound may be running out of grip soon, but if you can make it last up until lap 13, 14, maybe even 15, you can come in, pit for the super softs, and therefore emerge in even softer tyres, which, if you can keep them on track for 3 or less laps, then in all fairness, you are giving yourself a very good chance of grabbing it and not only fastest lap, but regain any lost positions that you may be losing now. Now, the Raptor is already seeing VW in his sights around certain elements of this really crowded track. Crowded when it comes to barriers and corners, of course, not necessarily drivers. If you have 10 drivers on the track, at least we did, now only 9. Now the purple sector, watch this be another fastest lap. 3 seconds now separates VW from the Raptor. He's really making this gap smaller by the moment. You couldn't do this better. He started this lap off with about a 4-second gap, and it's currently 2.8 seconds, and I can bet you this will probably fall down to 2.5 by the time he crosses the start-finish straight. He really does know every element of the track, and that is another fastest lap. VS Gamer receives a 3-second tap penalty at his collection as well, making his attempt of reaching podium positions that much harder. Less than 2.5 seconds now, separating first from second. This is where you really need the pit strategy, because it is clear to VW, must be, that the Raptor is quicker than him. And we're not speaking about any kind of small gap here, guys, or small difference in speed. This is a massive, massive difference. If you're catching up on with about 2 seconds per lap, you're doing something that your competitor isn't. And we now fall, or I should say, the Raptor falls within 2 seconds of the car ahead. He did for a little while though. That slowly edges upwards. It really is the corners of the track that provide him the best ability to make any kind of overtake, any kind of move on his competitor. Maybe not even move at this point, but catching up is definitely something he is doing around the corners. Maybe not necessarily the straights, because if his setup is slightly more concentrated on the aero, that allows him to speed the corners like this one right here. So on lap 8, I can imagine that by lap 10, these drivers will be fighting right next to each other. So meanwhile, VS Gamer fell a little bit. Guy Shapiro receives a 3-second time penalty. Yet another one. And we did temporarily have yellow flags on track. So we spoke about pit strategy early on, but it really doesn't seem as if the Raptor needs to pit at all. With the last race being 14 laps, he really did run through very smoothly, very easily. Stretching the tyres for another 3 would definitely be possible. Of course, in feature races you are forced to pit. And now it does appear as if you will be getting DRS by the end of this lap. So, it looks like my hypothesis of these guys fighting within the end of lap 10 is coming to life. This is unbelievable speed from the Raptor. But speed is one thing, you can really be quicker than your competitors. And this is something that a lot of us know from online lobbies. You can be quicker than your competitors, but that does not necessarily mean that you can make an overtake. Because overtaking is one completely separate skill set that you need to obtain. So, as they pass through the DRS detection zone, the Raptor will not have the 1 second gap to the car ahead. meaning that he has to struggle just slightly. Although even saying struggle is a bad word, because he has just moments ago crossed the 1 second gap. We have a first pit stop with Guy Shapiro going in, but he elects to retire from the race. Second retirement from our drivers here. Reason for that, I cannot tell you. 7/10 of a gap now between first and second. 5/10 just a moment later. The little green circle that you saw just a moment ago on the track map is a DRS detection zone, and clearly the drivers here, or the driver the Rapster, is within a second of a reach, meaning that he can't open his rear flap. Look how much later he brakes. It isn't just about the execution of the corner, but about the braking points, really knowing the limits of not only the car, but the track and where your own driving style can take you. That is what is truly giving the Rapster a major advantage. 6/10 of a difference now. And VW pits, meaning that the Rapster now takes control of the race. Now, what tyre compound will VW be going on to? That is my question. It is the super softs, which is a bit weird if you ask me. We saw a second driver going in there, given that it's only lap 11 of 17. I'm expecting the Raptors to pit within 2 laps, given the relatively speaking early stop of VW. Anything can happen here, really. If you have the speed of this compound tire, why would you leave it? Obviously the super soft tire is a lot quicker, but if you can make it last a bit more than your other competitors, then you're in quite an ideal position. Although we always speak about this ideal zone in which tires are to be used, the proximity of their use. But if you think about it, if you pit too late, you're not ever going to reach even halfway of the tire life. Hence why drivers like VW may have elected to pit so early. Now, whether the Raptor will do so right now is another question. Appears as if he is coming in. With 3 retirements from the session, we are now finishing this race off step by step. So now where does VW go? Appears as if he will be overtaking the Rapster. So he is leaving the pit lane, but VW or the Rapster? That is my question. Into turn 1, VW does make it into P2. It does appear as if the overcut has in fact worked for the Rapster. The VW just behind him. So there you go. The Rapster now on 1 lap fresher tyres. Clearly quicker. VW has not managed to make this undercut work for his advantage. So pit stop games, clearly something our drivers are interested in. No more wipeouts today, at least not so far. And now we see what VW can do in terms of chasing. And it is the second gap that Duraps has produced, or almost I should say. And a purple sector, what could you expect? You definitely couldn't expect less from this driver. So VW actually started second. Rapster has a 9th position gain, which definitely puts him in contention for driver of the day. 2 wins in a row. Definitely something he can be proud of. All the hours spent preparing for this race will have paid off. 5 position game for Ken, who actually sets the fastest lap of the race. Not a good day for Arxie here though. A 6th position drop. Not what you want to see if you're his team principal. And that is definitely not what you want to see if you're his team principal. Speaking of wipeout, you can wipe out yourself, remember that. It appears as if his wing is still fully intact despite taking a really severe shunt there. Just take a look, all the penalty given drivers are in the bottom 3 positions, so it appears as if the top 3, the podium positions, are uncontested, at least not off track. Do Rapster with a 150.5. If you're a fan of high tech, you're definitely enjoying this. Look at this, 3.5 seconds of gap already. He simply doesn't find satisfaction in winning. He needs to absolutely dominate. So, 4 laps left till the end of the race. As if our positions are relatively set in stone. So 4.5 seconds of a gap between first and second. Whoa. Happy days for D-Rapster and the high techs. Not necessarily if you're VS Gamer, for example, who had started I should say, really high up in the order, had the moment of driving 4 podium positions and now finds himself in P5 with penalties severely far away from the podium. White line they're taking Buchanan. Obviously there isn't too much to contend for when you're driving a lone race here. 3 laps left to go. But it still is fairly odd nevertheless. that he takes such a fairly wide line there. So Oxy there decides to end his pain in this race, not the way you might be thinking, but simply by leaving the session. So there's 5 of you watching. Let me know, what do you think about the Australian Grand Prix? What can we expect from our drivers? Or maybe I should ask a different question. What do we think about Vegas? That race is supposed to be bringing 500 million to the bank of Vegas. That is an amount of money. And consider this isn't just on the basis of ticket sales, this isn't just on the basis of tax or anything. These are drivers. This is one of the biggest motorsport events being taken into a major city which is already generating huge amounts of money. And suddenly, you bring fans from all over the world to watch something like this. What can you expect to happen? Five and a half per second gap with 2 laps left of the race. We lost one of our viewers temporarily, who is now back. Let me know what you think about Vegas as a Formula 1 venue. So if we take a look at the standings following the Mexican Grand Prix, Hightech was first. So the Rapster will be aiding that lead. It was a 310 point lead compared to the 244 points gained by HWA. Very behind Campus with 209. So definitely not too much space for competition. And yes, as our viewers are saying, the Rapster isn't going to lead the championship. Miga had 201 points for Prema following the 10th round of the season. The Rapster had 164 for the Hightech, given the additional points from both the sprint and feature race. If he can pull this through, he will be leader of the championship. Preston is in 6th, who drives the Carlin. Bit of a shame because when he came in once, he really smacked the competition. It would have been awesome seeing him fight with the Rapster, maybe some other drivers being a bit more competitive, but everybody is doing what they can, and this is what you have been brought today. The Rapster with ultimate domination is now following in the footsteps of previous greats on the game. With this figured, you can only expect them to make moves into F1 Esports. The official F1 Esports, of course, that is what I'm speaking about in the coming years. Really talented driver. Now, with just a few corners to go, obviously I don't want to curse him using the commentator's curse, which has actually been something I've been imagining to use a few times before. But it appears as if he will be relatively clean with a 5, almost 6 second gap there you go, the race winner of not only the sprint race, but the feature race. D-Rapster, your new leader of the championship. VW follows close behind, Can does as well. The interesting bit will come in just a moment after the following drivers between 4th and 7th will come through the line and all the penalties will be enacted, but as it stands, D-Rapster is your current championship leader. Awesome race by him, not just one but two races. To come in and dominate even after starting 10th is something that not everybody can do. D-Rapster is clearly one of those people that can, and a well-deserved driver of the day goes to him. So there's your starting, well, feature race, sorry. If the game had let me actually change the screens, I would have done so, but unfortunately I cannot. So with the results for the weekend, D-Rapster in first, followed by VW, Can Dolga in third, Max in fourth, VS Game in fifth with no position gain or loss, and the rest is simply history. 27 points for D-Rapster following this one race. Another 17 with the sprint race, and the results for the weekend are as follows. D-Rapster brings some 44 awesome points for high tech. VW brings in 28, Can with 27, Max with 20, VS Game with 16. I'd say his name but I cannot, otherwise I'll be cancelled. 8 points for the German, 6 points for Oxy, Etsy with 4, Ben Shapiro with 2, and the true Scottish fish Ben with 1. Please drivers, if you do have any complaints, remember to send in both your race director and your replays. That was round 11 of NRL around Singapore. Source of commentator for you guys. I'll see you next week.